It's great to see everyone. It's actually just about 1 year since we had another session with Jason Potts in that exact room and with several of the same participants. So I wish I could be there as well. Lina invited me, but it was a little bit difficult to make it, as you understand, in these times at the UN. So welcome to this session of Innovation Circle. Today we'll be talking about a new book called the Ecosystem Playbook, Coordinating Efforts to Improve Innovation Ecosystems, which has been developed by Vinnova, Ramboll Management Consulting, and the Danish Design Centre. And it provides guidance and principles for how do you actually strengthen innovation ecosystems in practice, not through one-size-fits-all solutions, but through very targeted solutions and strategic learning in forums as this. Some of the things that that people who know me I like to talk about is, first of all, what are all the issues that come up in implementation? What happens when Lina Svensberg wants to do a very ambitious innovation-enhancing procurement initiative and then picks up the phone and speaks to a procurement lawyer and hears that nothing is possible. Another is the idea of, or what I like especially, and I think what could be important for Etin is to think of small-scale experimentation, which can take place in regions and in cities and municipalities, rather than large-scale and then systematic learning to find out what works and what does not. And I would also be very interested in hearing from some of the specific experiences. In this case, what a coincidence, from Swedish regions. But I also hope that we have participants here from others, because we want this to be as interactive as possible. So thank you very much from my side, and I'll now hand over to Julie Hjort, who will be the moderator. She's the CEO of the Danish Design Centre, and we also have Kjell Håkan Närfeldt from Vinnova, and Anna Edwall, manager and team lead for societal impacts and policy at Ramboll Management Consulting. So over to you for the discussion, and I look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Geneva. This is a very cool format. It's really exciting for me to, I can't see you, but I can hear you. So all senses are all alert for this session. And we're being recorded, and the whole world is there with us. It's not only Geneva, but people from across countries, and are able to listen in on this conversation that I've been looking so much forward to, together with Anna and Kjell Håkan and Teresa, who's sitting there. We've just finished this new playbook on ecosystem innovation, and this is the best opportunity to actually talk about it with practitioners from Värmland at Värmland about how you actually do this in practice, because it's complex stuff, and we try to sort of approach that in a way that hopefully is meaningful to a lot of people. And I have a very cool panel of people with me. So we've already introduced Kjell Håkan and Anna, but I also have Jakob Lindvall, who is CEO and co-founder of ALDAP Innovation. I have Håkan Spjut. Yes, thank you. Head of Grants and Innovation Office at Karlstad University. And I have Angelica Jacopo, researcher and innovation strategist at Region Värmland. So thank you guys for taking the time. We only have an hour, so we'll be just running along for this really interesting conversation. And first, just to get an idea of the menu, Kjell Håkan, you've been sort of fathering this playbook, so we want to hear a little bit about why this playbook is important. Anna, you've been part of producing this playbook, so I'd like to hear a little bit more what it's about, how you actually use it, what's it for. And then we have about a half an hour of just conversation with this great group about how is this way of working in practice, what does it entail, what are the potentials, what are the challenges. And here, you can put up your hand and ask a question. We have people online from Geneva, from somewhere else, who can ask a question, and I'll try, with help from Lina, to figure out who wants to say something. And that's what we'll do for the 1 hour. So great, let's jump into it. Kjell Hogan, you came up with this idea all the way from the beginning, reached out to Anna and I and said, we need to talk about innovation ecosystems. Why do we need to talk about innovation ecosystems?
Let me give the Vinnova perspective on it, because everybody's talking, it's a fashion word today, ecosystems. But let's start with our view from the Vinnova point of view. And as many of you know, Vinnova was founded on the concept of innovation systems, one of the first agencies in the world that was founded on with a theory on how you improve innovation performance in a geographical context. Innovation system is a concept where you look at with institutional lenses, how different kind of the research system works and interplays with the political system, with the industry and such. And we have been working with that for a long time, but for about 5-6 years ago, we looked into how can we really improve the conditions for organizations, which is not an institutional way of looking at it. How can we improve the life conditions for example, life science companies, or now we are focusing a lot on deep tech companies. How can we improve the life conditions so they thrive in a geographical context? And the life conditions are about how can a geographical context provide, for example, capital supply in the right way, competencies, talent, infrastructure for innovation, access to markets and customers, the connectiveness that you need both locally, nationally and globally in order to thrive. So these are like the life conditions, and that's what we mean by ecosystem. And it gives you a new lenses in order to understand how well your environment is supporting companies and organizations, and what you should do in order to be improving their conditions.
Okay, so there's kind of a shift from an institutional focus to how we support organizations and everything. You say connectedness, exactly. Everything in between organizations.
And I should add also, it's also how to improve the capacities and capabilities within the organizations, because if you don't know how to utilize the life conditions, of course you will not thrive. So it's basically creating the life conditions, but also the capabilities and capacities to really understand how to utilize those resources.
Okay, so you make this kind of sound like a no-brainer. Of course, we need to work with these life conditions. Great, we can just go home now. But how is this different? What is this a shift from this is quote unquote a traditional way of working with institutions and innovation, and this ecosystem approach? How does it differ from what kind of new sort of paradigm are we looking at here?
If we look how we today develop ecosystems, it's usually done by individual organizations, and cluster organizations improves its and its networks conditions. An incubator does it by itself, and usually you try to get consortia or individually and find usually project funding in competitive calls. And this creates a lot of fragmentation. You don't see the systemic effects of for example, Vinnova's funding. It's really difficult to understand the systemic effects when everybody is doing it individually in competitive calls. So when we looked into this, and we had dialogues with, for example, a company called Startup Genome, who had done an assessment of ecosystem for many years, and they have been in contact with many ecosystems. They came up with the idea that they think that coordinated ecosystem development improves the efficiency and effectiveness of funding ecosystem development, and it improves all the conditions for the organizations. So we started to look into what does it mean to do coordinated ecosystem development, and we developed certain models and theories and the guidelines around those ideas of coordinated ecosystem development, where you really try to create an ecosystem community which in some way collectively develops the life conditions. It's like a collective action kind of approach. And that of course brought us to the idea that this need to be communicated in the right way. We need to have some guidelines. We need to have somebody to help people in doing this kind of new thing, this new way of working with a systemic development. And that's when the answer is the playbook, of course.
Yes. Before we move on to the playbook, I'm curious, when you talk about the shift from institutions to coordination, who coordinates? Is it the institution? Who's this targeted for? Is it specific actors or?
We believe that basically, at least right now, you need a new type of intermediary, third-party neutral kind of organization or constellation of actors that represents the ecosystem community. That is not driven by self-interest, but really trying to create the win-win solutions for all actors in the ecosystem. And basically, I would like also to point out that from national and regional point of view, it also creates a new way of working from Vinnova point of view, because usually we have been looking at the best project. We found the best project applications. But now, since we want to really create coordinated development of national and regional perspectives, we need to work through regional organizations. So we had to work with them rather than working individually on a project basis. And that creates also another kind of strategy from a funding point of view or from a policy point of view, because you need to do it in a coordinated way also through the layers of the national and even, I think, even EU national and regional layers. If they are not aligned and not in some sort of sync, the effectiveness and efficiency will not be the one you are expecting.
That's interesting. So you have Vinnova, selling the ecosystems. You need to work in a different way, but of course that has consequences for how you actually incentivize funding. You don't congratulate that single good project that competes, but you're actually looking at how you stimulate this kind of collaboration in the ecosystem.
And create sustainable operations, because usually if you have the project lenses, it has a startup and it has an end. And I don't know how many projects I've seen coming back and say, we had this fantastic result, now we need a new project.
Yeah.
But they haven't been developing an operational model or a business model that is sustainable, because nobody has requesting it. They are just requesting a project.
Great. Okay, so I think we'll get back to some of these elements, but I want to move on to you, Anna.
Yes,
You've been
I've taken so many notes here.
I hope you can sort of
I'll
find
figure it out what's said here. Yes.
You've worked a lot with systems innovation and collaboration in different ways. So why do you think, why a playbook? And why was this a way to respond to all these ideas formulated by Kjell Håkan?
I'd say I've been working at a governmental agency, but also out in the system of, the innovation makers. And one thing I see is we need to bridge the gap between the strategic ambitions and the reality. And that's where handbook or playbook comes in, or just like a dialogue between people and saying, how are we going to achieve this together? And as I see it, you mentioned the institutional perspective. This is a shift to the more relational perspective, right? Where you come together and discuss, and you're like, where are we heading? What is the system around this object that we want to support, an organization or what? How do we collaborate in order for this to emerge together? So it's a shift of mindset into the more system thinking mindset, and it's another way of working. And I'd say it's also kind of it asks a lot, and it demands a lot from the institutional actors and others now to kind of enable this. It won't just happen.
No. Yeah. So also this is a big shift in what we incentivize, what kind of practice we have. So there needs to be some kind of translation here between practitioners and some of the ideas and strategies. That makes a lot of sense. So who do you hope reads this playbook, and who do you hope uses it?
Oh, everyone. Maybe not my children on a Friday night, but I mean, we have the regional authorities. We have some here in the room. We have some researchers in the room. I'd say we have enterprise agencies, business promoters. We have that one startup that wants to move further in the system. I mean, you can look at it from different perspectives, but I think the important part is to find a way to have this shared dialogue where you actually can set a direction together. You can look at the current state of this system. You can set a direction together, and you will find actions to take together moving forward. The difficult part in this is the decisive power. How do we as a system move forward? It's really easy in theory, not in practice, because money talks, and who's having the mandate to lead this initiative. Doesn't matter if we talk about a project or a cluster, like there's always someone taking a lead, and there will always be some kind of battle. So, I mean, it will take a lot to find a new way moving forward here, I think.
Yeah, I see. I think there's a question from the chat. Lina, you're connected. That's why you're looking at the phone.
You look so excited.
She's not texting.
I'm actually working. That's what I normally tell my family. Yes. So there is a question from the audience from UK, and they are asking, how can they access the playbook? Because this is the launch, right? This event. Is there a link, or how do you? Because they get curious now.
It's so fresh
here.
new. I have it in my hand, and we're going to put it online on social media tomorrow, and then on the web page next week.
Yes.
So we'll make sure to send out links in the community, because it's so. And I'm sure, Kjell Håkan hasn't, he's probably going to find some word he needs to change on the last page. So next week.
Let's say we have an ongoing conversation here about some.
But thank you for asking. It's going to be, open for everyone to. It can be used digitally, but there are also tools you can print and work with in practice, and everyone can download it. Yes. Thank you for a very good and relevant question. Okay, so let's move on, Anna. There's something about ownership here, I think, because you're saying people need to come together, create a shared direction. So there's not like, it's not necessarily just the region or the university or the business science park. It's a little bit of everyone here that needs to come together.
Yeah, and you need to decide on what is the main object or unit of analysis, as you would say. Here we talk about the living conditions for that organization, and saying what is the system that surrounds this object or this ambition or this problem when going into system thinking, and from that move forward. But it can't be everything. I mean, people working with system thinking, they're like, how big is a system? I mean, it could be everything, but you have to put some limitations to it and a focus to it.
Yeah, great. So while still giving and having, leaving a bit of a cliffhanger, so people want to download the playbook, you give us just, a little bit of a walkthrough of the main elements of how we assess this playbook.
I'll do it quick. It's 3 dimensions. It's the ecosystem directionality, the direction, where are we heading together? It's the ecosystem resources. So what resources do we have at hand? What is it? How does it look like? What units do we have? And the third thing is the community. That's the people, the organizations, the relationships. So these are the 3 dimensions. And then we also have some elements that you need to look into, and I'll just say them, and then you can read more about it online, right? So we have 7 guiding themes for ecosystem coordination, which is, Kjell Håkan, let's hope I say it right now, skills and talent. Making sure that the right skills are developed and attracted, etc., and matched to the ecosystem needs. You have the market and customer access, where you help businesses understand and reach local and global markets to grow and scale innovation. That's the second. Do I have time to say all these?
Yes, I think it's important, so please do.
And then we have the Kjell Håkan favorite, which is the corporate fabric. Corporate fabric, which is leveraging established companies as anchors for innovation through collaboration, openness, and leadership. And this is crucial now with what's happening in the world with in Swedish we say tullar, I don't know.
Tariffs.
And what is happening right now with businesses and that kind of questions here in Sweden. And then you have innovation infrastructure, which is like providing shared physical, technical, and support environments that enable testing, development, and scaling. And of course, we have that. We're really strong at that in the Swedish regions. And then, of course, capital and funding. which is like aligning financial resources with the ecosystem goals, you know, the direction of it all, right? From early stage to scale up and beyond the project cycles that Kjell-Håkan talks about. And then this sixth is the competitive advantage, which is identifying and amplifying regional strength to build strategic focus and attract partnership and investments. And of course, in Sweden, we have the smart specialization strategy work, and we have a lot of different things there, but there's also other topics at hand to look into. And then last but not least, the ecosystem performance, continuously measuring, improving the innovation efforts. How are we doing? I mean, the assessment here, the support processes and the outcomes across the ecosystem. And all this, now really cliffhanger, in 3 steps. First, you need to assess, you need to look in how are we doing today? And then where do we want to be? What is our direction? And that could be both what do we want to focus on, but also what do we need to support and improve in this ecosystem in order to move forward in our direction. And last but not least, what actions are we taking now? And this takes time. I'd say the last part. It's not something you do one time and then you're done. You have to move back and forth between these 3 steps
And I think
and the dimensions.
thank you so much. And these are 7 themes, and it can be, as I think you once mentioned, Kjell-Håkan, quite overwhelming to work with all of them. So it's also about, you know, identifying what's the most important strategic new directions and themes for the specific region, right? So
Yeah.
so focusing the work. Yeah,
It will not be done in one workshop.
just so you know.
Sorry.
Sorry. This could take a lifetime, but it is an ongoing process. Thank you so much. And I think what we talked about a lot when we did this work, we started out by interviewing a group of Swedish regions who were already very active in working with the ecosystem approach. We've been humbled that it's not completely new. It's actually something that several regions have been working quite actively with for a long time. So that's why I also want to sort of, now we're talking about new approaches, new methodology, new ways of working, but I'd like to talk a little bit about, you know, learned experiences here in Värmland, where we are. I'd like to start with you, Jakob. So if you could just, you know, firstly just briefly introduce yourself, and then say a little bit how you have approached this ecosystem way of working in your work. And we're going to do the same with all 3, just so you're prepared. Yes.
Thank you very much. And stop me if I'm talking too long. But my name is Jakob Lindvall, and my experience is deeply rooted in practice, actually. So I'm more or less born and raised in the innovation ecosystem as a living organism, working in both multinational companies and startups, but in those kind of ecosystems like incubators and science parks. And I also experienced real transformation when I was living in Norrköping. The city of Norrköping was one of the industrial epicentrums in Sweden, and got a heavenly, what do you say, drawback with a lot of industry closing down. And I was by the time head of Norrköping, what became Norrköping Science Park. And we collectively created a new vision of the future. And as they still do, actually. I don't live in Norrköping anymore, but I saw literally that I was participating in a transformation in real time of a city, from an industrial city to a knowledge-intensive city. So my experience from that point of view is this is very much a matter of people, I would like to say. So I have actually had a sneak peek of this playbook, and I strongly recommend it. It's fascinating because it's not, it's a very complex task, but you have really made it accessible. So you can actually read it through in an hour or something, and you actually grasp the complexity of it. But what I wanted to say with that is that it is a continuous work, and it is a people business. But what is guiding successful ecosystem in its involvement is actually a well-grounded and committed vision for the future. What vision do we strive for collectively? If we have that in place and it is grounded in our strengths, then the likelihood to succeed is way better than if we have not. We need to be better to actually build our visions together and share them. And actually, the playbook we have that.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the kind words. This is what we call it directionality, just creating this joint direction. How do you actually build some kind of momentum for people to coordinate together? And it's great to hear that you experienced it in real life with people, seeing how that changes communities, which is really fascinating. Let's jump to the university perspective, Håkan. And what's your take on this? Just tell me a little bit about what your position and what your take on ecosystem is from your point of view.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, Håkan Spjut is my name, and I'm heading the Grants and Innovation Office at Karlstad University. And me and my team, our task is to help the researchers as individuals and groups, but also the institution to grow as a research and innovation institution. And in that capacity, I've been sort of coordinating our role as an important actor when it comes to innovation as an innovation system actor here in Värmland since 2009 or something like that. And if I look back to that at that time and over the years now, what I see is a big difference where we have as an ecosystem here in Värmland or an innovation system here in Värmland moved towards an ecosystem, as you said, Jakob, as a part of a living transformation. Back in the days, we talked about each cluster applied for funding. Nowadays, we're talking how could we find sort of the links and the threads between different actors in the system in a much more active and living way. And that's a big, big difference. So we have been part of this journey going from individual actors to an ecosystem thinking. What I don't think we have is what you said, Kjell Håkan, sort of one boss. Who is boss of this system? I don't think we have that, and I'm not sure if it's needed at this point, at least. I think we have. I think we are a joint boss, but we have reached a level where the joint boss can apply for joint projects, joint initiatives in a much, much better way compared to 2009-10 or so.
You said something that
Yeah,
really need to respond. Just
Yeah.
briefly,
He needs to respond directly.
I want to say that I think even the playbook and in all our discussions, you don't have one because it's collective action.
Yeah.
And it's really basically also when we talk about this kind of coordinating kind of organization of it, it should not have the power of deciding everything.
No.
It's really about to create this collective advantage for everybody in the ecosystem. But you have to balance, you have to balance collaboration with competition. You cannot, it's not about a big joint collaboration, and it's not about everybody's competing. It's finding the balance.
Yeah, I know that Kjell Håkan was to argue on that. So,
So you did it on purpose, right?
Exactly. but also want to add that during this journey, I would say that we had never ever been able to think as an ecosystem until now, because it takes time, long-term funding, long-term trust building. And I think we have reached that now. We were not there at 2015 or 2000. Now it's time to think like an ecosystem and act as an ecosystem.
Really
that's my take on it.
I'm a little bit curious. It seems like you've taken on a very intermediary role on behalf of research, and also in your position. What does this do to the individual researcher? Does something change in his or her orientation here as well?
Yeah, it's a paradigm shift for a researcher. I mean, earlier in research, you got your base funding and you did your research. Now you need to always cooperate with companies or public actors to get funding, but also to deliver your research result and get your publications and so on. It's a big difference compared to 20 years ago. So as a researcher, you really need to engage in the ecosystem. And that's the thing for a university. I mean, for us, it's very crucial for us to be an active and driving and important actor in our region. But we can't never forget that we are a university, and we are supposed to act nationally and internationally as well. So the combination of that is sort of the key for successful research and innovation.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to you, Angelica. I'd love to hear your perspectives from a region. So do you see this, I've heard of these two actually powerful transformation happening in different regions. Do you experience that same, and what does it look like from your chair?
Well, let's first introduce myself.
Yes,
Värmland.
Sorry.
As a strategist for research and innovation. And if you talking about you're born and raised, I have my heart in the production floor in the industry as an engineer, a former engineer, and that's where I found my engagement. And I think that's important when you also came into an ecosystem like this, because when I came into this system, it was already raised from Håkan and from others in Värmland. I have the opportunity to come into a system which is, I shouldn't say like perfect, but it's we have built very strong organizations. The cluster organizations are strong. They are. I should say that they are working together. We have found this in Värmland, and we also have this very, very strong and very successful cooperation with the university. So from the regional perspective, I think we are in a good way. But we also have some challenges, of course. We have to still work with this to improve and to be better and to find ways together to achieve what we want to achieve.
And in your view, what's, because there are so many actors here who play a part, this is very much a people thing, as you said. What's the role of the region here? What's the specific, strongest role of the region in this kind of collaboration?
Well, as I see it, to the strongest, we are facilitating,
Yeah.
We are financing, and we try to also coordinate the system, because we have the overview, what is happening in the region, what all these clusters are doing, what the university, and we sit in that chair to have an overview and to facilitate and also finance.
Yeah. Okay, great. Silver.
I want just to add the importance of when you talk about, which we haven't touched upon still, but one of the things that is so important if you look at a region like Värmland is really to create a narrative, a joint narrative.
Yeah.
And it's about also looking at aspects that you are not solving by yourself. For example, if you have a weak capital supply, it's not one organization that is able to address that. It's a collective action. So the narrative is so important. And when we see in other places in the world where you have been succeeding, you create a narrative that attracts talent, that attracts capital, that attracts companies to really come and collaborate or establish yourself in that. So when you look at the directionality and things like that, it's also about communicating outside in order to create this narrative that creates connectiveness. And it's an important part of the playbook and the collective action.
Yeah, and I think it's also an important detail that there's doesn't have to be a regional context. It could be a local context, but there is a community. There's also the sort of the site-specific local aspect that it's a stronger story when there is that border around the ecosystem. Regions stand stronger when they have this the story to tell. What do you?
Just one quick reflection on this phenomena, that it's not about building yet another complex organization, right? Because we love control and love knowing what is, right? But we need to avoid that and see it's about people, it's about relationship, and things change all the time. So flexibility is the key word here. We have a direction, we have somewhat a plan, and we're moving forward together. We're interdependency is the word, right? Where we relate to one another, but we're not building yet another organization, because then we set structures that we can't get out.
Yeah. That's an important, insight. This is not about adding elements. It's about connecting elements, right? Not building that new thing, but finding out how to utilize the resources we have. So this way of working that, connects people like this around a common direction. Jakob, I'm curious, what kind of skills do we need? How do we build capacity for this kind of working?
That's a very good question, actually. My take on this is once again that this is very much a people's game, so to speak. So of course we need to develop our social skills as individuals to be able to work together, communicate together, to bring this narrative together and bring it to life together. The social skills, and also we need a new kind of leadership skill, I guess, or actually we can see that clearly. Because as Kjell Håkan pointed out, no one is actually in charge of the ecosystem in itself. This is a collective effort, which means that we need to bring our leadership skills to a new level where we lead ourselves and we lead collectively. And we need to fill in those white spots where no one actually are in a leader position. And then, of course, even though we have a desirable future, we're a very attractive narrative that we can tell each other. Very, very difficult to point out exactly the way forward. So we need to embrace, or we need to accept the fact that this is very, very complex systems we are working in, and the world is changing all the time. And we know that personally, that the rules of the game is changing all the time. So we need to embrace experimentation. And we need to learn from experimentation. And to be able to do that, we need to build trust. So we have the courage to actually experiment. And trust, I think, is the most important asset, actually, in this kind of ecosystem.
Seems like you have an...
Yeah, I totally agree
yeah.
that. But I also think that...
Microphone close to mouth for all the Geneve listeners out there. Yes.
I will not
Thanks.
try not to swallow it.
Please do.
No, I also thought about what you said, Kjell Håkan, about creating the narrative and also the challenge we have with these 3-year project models that we live in with EU, national and regional funding. I think what we love in the systems like this is to have long-term sort of initiatives like the Vinvext programs, 8-10 years, where we can build capacity and build long-term sort of and maintain the things that we have built for a long time. But I think there is a trick as well I think we have to realize that the 3-year project model is here to stay. That's the feeling, at least. And then try to build a narrative based on a project portfolio thinking, how various projects can support each other, and use that in the narrative when we will describe our way of working, our achievements, our results, how an EU project can have synergies with a national and a regional project in order to develop that both the individual actors, but also the ecosystem as such. So I think that's maybe a skill, but it's something that is important, I think, to think in project portfolios.
Yeah, it seems like there's something about acting in many levels all at once.
Yes.
So there's a long-term thinking that we also advocate for in the portfolio, within the playbook. But then there's the experiments, Jakob, those are tiny and fast and quick-paced. And then there are the cycles that we have to sort of work within the system until it changes. So how to relate that into the 3-year cycle? So there's something about being able to work in these several paces at once. I see there's activity here, but there's also a question from the chat that I wanted to take in.
Yes, we have a hand raised in the audience, and that is Stephanie Engelhardt. Could you please unmute yourself and present yourself and ask your question?
Hello, nice to meet you. I'm Stephanie Engelhardt. I'm from Germany. And I founded a company, Unleash Future Boats. We are developing zero emission and autonomous boats and also the ecosystem for these boats. From my perspective, I think the biggest challenge is funding, but I have a different question because I like your playbook, but I think it's a Swedish playbook, isn't it? And what does this mean for other countries? So for example, Germany, but also for the complete EU, because innovations are not stopping at the border, but your ecosystem, your Swedish ecosystem is stopping there. So what does this mean for the EU?
Anna, maybe?
That's a great question, and of course you have ecosystems of ecosystems, and try to address the whole EU you have to do it in a context of member states. And I believe that, for example, the new effort in EU in looking into how to improve, for example, for startups and scale-ups, and not really only relying on established companies to really renew the economy, is an ecosystem approach. And then, for example, I know that I've been part of that discussion. If the 28th regime, like we are 27 member countries, we have to perhaps create a 28th regime to create a free space in order to be able to create life conditions which are not, because it's so difficult to do it in the fragmented European context. So it's a great question, but from the playbook is quite general. So you can apply it in a local context, in a regional context, in a national context. But of course, as soon as you move into bigger geographical context, the challenges becomes bigger. And the fragmentation and the governance structures and, everything that hits the shit hits the fan, So it becomes very difficult. And I think you have to do it in a lot of way bottom up. Because it's really, even though you can have a directionality which is on the EU level, but basically the solutions start locally, and you have to find the interplay between them.
So locally, be that in Germany, be that in Geneva, be that in Denmark, be that in Sweden.
Yes, I think Stephanie wants to respond.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think yes, but did you had discussions with other countries already, or is it ongoing?
Other countries, did we have discussion with other countries about this playbook?
Yes, within the UNECE, we are. This will be launched, and we are looking into a work stream within the UNECE Etting network, the Transformative Innovation Network, to be to create a peer learning kind of community that we can help each other in developing each other's ecosystems, utilizing the playbook. So the playbook will be launched in a UNECE context and will be available for anyone. And we will, this, for example, this occasion, if you are interested listening to this and interested in contributing to such a work stream, we are happy to have your name and your interest, because we want to start something within that network, a work stream on ecosystem development.
Thank you, Jakob.
I just want to add that in some way I think this kind of universal, and I had the fortunate within the UN network to work with some developing countries and transition economies. Recently I was in Uzbekistan, for example, and since they are a transition economy, it's very easy for them to envision a desirable future that is very, very crisp, clear for them. And I believe also in that context, with that power, if you really decide that you want to transform the system you are living in, then you can do it. I strongly believe that this is a universal power that we can use in most of our contexts, actually.
Great, thank you, Jakob. So there's something that I think is a challenge here when we're talking about this. It's very much, in between the organization, the relationships, the connectedness, trust, and how do we assess if we are succeeding? How do we assess impact? If this is, we can't say, oh, this is a great project, or all these usual metrics we're used to working with. And I'm curious how we sort of change how we incentivize this way of working. Angelica, as a regional actor, how do you look at that? How do we look at impact, and how do we know we are succeeding?
Well, actually, I think that's the $100 question, because I have struggled with this myself, and I know this whole system is struggling with this question, because, and I think we have to find a balance. We have talked a lot about balance today, and I think we have to find a balance, because you can measure some things. You can measure, so many companies have been built and so many employees and so on. But you still need to understand that we are also working with risk. We are working with risks in this system, and sometimes we just have to invest without knowing where we are going.
Mm.
And sometimes we don't succeed, and this have to be okay. So I think we have to find a balance, and I also think someone said that we have to monitor the process all the time, and we have also discussed how to communicate the narrative, and I think that's one of the things you should do to communicate what we have, where we have succeeded, the effects for the system and the effects for the society, and this is also a way of, like, say, measuring it, but to see where we are going and to communicate it. I think that's important.
I think it also adds to what you were saying, Jakob, that this is also a new working that demands you experiment. So you need to take some plunges, and from a regional, more authoritative approach, where you maybe used to sort of scanning, pros and cons, and then taking the right direction. Sometimes you plunge into the unknown here, and that's a new way of. And we have to be able to do that without having the answers in advance.
Can I just add one thing?
Yes, you get to come before Jill Hogan. Sorry.
Yeah, there was a Swedish, even a Swedish agency that had came to the conclusion that in these kind of transformative ways, understandability is much more important than measurability, because you have to create this narrative, you have to get mobilize people and organizations, and it's not measurability that really creates it, it's understandability where we are heading. So that's one, and then of course I would like to also say that it's really important to focus on experiments and learning. We discussed that within ETIN previously, that the project kind of approach is that, okay, you have this money, you have these activities that you have got money, and you have these deliverables. And then you focus on the deliverables and how to utilize the resources you have been given to reach those deliverables. You lose sight of learning.
I guess
Because so we have to move this kind of projectification way of looking into a more non-predictive experimental learning process, and that requires another way of monitoring and working from a like a governance point of view.
And I think that's, Angelica, you're getting to speak really soon. That's also what you're saying with communicating the learnings, communicating the progress. We thought we were doing this, we realized we learned this, now we're going to do this. So just taking out those learnings.
That was right. We thought we were heading there, but now we learned that's right.
Yeah.
Let's accept it.
Okay, so Anna, and then Jakob, and then
see how our group work has been. I just say we always get back to the fun part, which is funding, and that is the great challenge, and it's really challenging to find funding for risk taking, right? So as I see it, my personal view is that you have to work with policy innovation at the same time. I mean, you talked about accepting, we have 3 years funding, like project cycles, and you also have in Swedish we say statsstödsregler. I can't even say it in English.
Don't say it at all.
Don't say it, don't mention it.
State aid rules.
I'm going in, I'm mentioning it the word, yeah. We have that as well, and we have a lot of different limitations that we need to look at and accept, but also explore and see what is possible within these limitations and what is not. And that needs to happen at the same time. And that's the frustrating part of it, but it needs to be done.
Yes, thank you.
Now I will shut up.
Jakob, yes?
This might sound a bit strange, but it just comes straight from my heart. That one of the most important things is to build attractiveness, to really get the participation of the willing, so to speak. And what makes people want to participate in change? It must be fun. It must be rewarding for me as a person. I need to have fun. And actually, what I see when I'm around working with this kind of items, that when people have fun together, they really like to be together and create the future together, then they succeed. And how can we measure fun? Well, we could actually measure the number of laughs in every meeting, but I think that's maybe not possible. But for example, Net Promoter Score. How possible is it that you would recommend another entity or person to participate in this community as well? I think we need to build upon that it needs to be attractive to be a part of the community. That's the power of the community.
Yeah, that's great.
Love
You
it.
just want to add, you had something
Well, I
there?
just want to add that we also have to be as qualified as possible when we are founding organizations and projects, of course, and also have the respect for public funds. I just need to say that because it's also important.
Yeah.
There is also a balance. So there's pros and cons with everything.
Yep.
Thank you. We have a question here
Yes,
again.
we have 2 questions from the audience, and after those 2, I think we're soon going to start wrapping up. But 2 more questions, and then I would like to ask if Ella van Gemond, if you want to ask the question yourself, if you want me to read it out loud. Ella, please introduce yourself if you want to. Okay, I will read the question. This is a question from a local government perspective. What new, as an added value, does the approach offer to stakeholders navigating limited resources and a very fragmented policy reality? They would say directionality is the base of any of their policy formulation and funding programming, or that stakeholder engagement is an established practice and part of a political bargaining. Is this mainly about new narrative and framing? What would you say?
That was a hard one.
That's what and I don't know if I grasped the complete.
Maybe we need it again a little bit
Yeah.
slower. Do we need it again a little bit slower? Yes.
Let's say.
We're all listening now.
It was a long one. What new, as an added value, does the approach offer, this in the Playbook, to stakeholders navigating limited resources and a very fragmented policy reality?
Okay. Yes.
And of course, that's the reality in most cases. You have always limited resources. It's never, you don't have an immense resources, and you have a usually fragmented policy context also. And the idea, as I see it, at least with the playbook, and it's not continue with this. Try to get the collective action around something. Yeah. Around something that really creates a narrative for the local region or the local community that helps the whole community, which you cannot solve by a single organization or a single individual. Try to find out that, because in the playbook you do a self-assessment, and that self-assessment you have to focus on something, like Julie pointed out, not on everything. You have to find something to focus on where you can create a collective action and focus on that. And that's only the narrative from the playbook.
I think it's a good question, because basically with this playbook, we're just asking people to do a whole lot more work. Yeah. That is hard, complex, and we just said it's a work of a lifetime. But I think there's something about this is about accumulating resources, pooling resources, building on top of other skills and knowledge. So it's actually about not being that lone rider in the ecosystem, but building on top of each other's resources, and then building more momentum around the agendas or the work that the individual stakeholder is doing. But it's still an investment, right? So there's, of course, is a jump there. But I wanted to take time to have the other question here.
Yeah, then we have the last question for today before we move into the closing segment. And then I would like to welcome Len Keller from UK to introduce yourself and ask your question.
Thanks, Lena. Thanks all to the panel for a very interesting conversation. Some very interesting insights in this. My question relates to the relational approach that the playbook takes, and specifically coalitions of the willing. And I'm just wondering, what does the playbook suggest in terms of how conflicts should be handled? Are they a good thing? Are they a bad thing? Do you consider them at all? Just very interested in your approach. Thanks very much.
Did you say what conflicts?
How you
how you handle conflicts?
How to handle
so if the relational aspects, how do?
Yeah, I'd say there will always be drama and conflicts when people meet, and we cannot avoid it. So I'd say it's a natural and part of it, and it's not about finding one consensus, but actually looking into the conflicts, put them on the table, and look at it from different perspectives. That's kind of one key takeaway from the playbook.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's where the trust comes in.
Exactly, I was coming into it.
100%.
Because if you have the trust in the system, then we can handle the conflicts and the dramas, as you say.
Yeah.
There's always drama, but you need to have fun and you need to build trust. Yes,
Last one, also from our physical audience here. It's Maisa Young from the Swedish Procurement Agency asking, in regards to public procurement, how do we innovate together without jumping on the same challenges in separate clusters? If we think about taxpayer output, how should we increase public procurement power to increase efficiency and decrease risk?
I'd say you always need activists at the different agencies that look into it and say, we have some things we can work on here, let's do it together. So that's my take on it.
I think driving demand through public procurement and is one instrument in addressing certain challenges that you have in your. You don't start with that. You have to know what do you want to address, what kind of challenge, what kind of problem, what kind of gap are you addressing with the procurement in driving the demand in such a way. So I think it's part of the toolbox. But it's not, it's not the solution you start with.
Thanks. One more.
So yes, now we're soon moving out of time, and Imala has asked me to take over her role of conducting the game segment that we always finish our Innovation Circle episodes with. We've got 3 statements each, 1 from Anna, 3 from Julie, and 3 from Anna. And there are 2 of them are lies, and 1 of them is true. And now you're going to guess which one is the true one. So we start with Anna.
How do they guess? They scream out loud or
raise their hands digitally and physically.
Okay.
So the 3 ones are, I will read them first. Anna Edwall, has she a 980-day streak on Duolingo Spanish?
Ooh.
Or has she completed a painting education? Or has she danced tango professionally? Who believes in the 980-day streak on Duolingo Spanish? Raise your hands. If you think that's the true one.
What was the middle one?
One of these are repeat them because
I will.
Yeah. Is it true that Anna Edwall has a 980-day streak on Duolingo Spanish? Up with your hand. Many of you think so. Is it true that she has completed a painting education? Some.
Take that as an insult.
Is it true that she has danced tango professionally? A couple, yeah. So let us know, Anna, which one is true?
Español.
Yeah.
Impresionante.
Yes. Me and my son have a 979 days day streak each in Duolingo, doing every day 15 minutes of Spanish. We still can't talk Spanish, but we do it anyway.
This is very impressive, I would say. So if we then move over to Julie, I'll read the 3 statements first. Is it true that she is a dedicated scuba diver and have traveled the world for oceanic adventures? Could that be true? Second one, is she an unbeatable limbo dancer? Or is it so that she plays the trumpet, jazzy style? So who believes that it's true that she's a dedicated scuba diver? Up with a hand. Some, yeah. Is it true that she's an unbeatable limbo dancer? Or is it true that she plays the trumpet? So let us know then, Julie.
It's a limbo dancer. And I always surprised because I'm so tall, but I'm really bendy backwards.
I would really love to see that after the show here.
knew it.
We can have a little demo.
This evening.
So with that, we just want to say thanks to all of you who've been here physically and virtually. Thank you to the world and thank you to Värmland. If you want to tune in on the next ETIN Innovation Circle, that takes place already tomorrow, because this one was a special additional episode. The next, so to say, normal one is tomorrow at 4 o'clock CET. And then it will be moderated by the ETIN member Sandra Boni from Universitat Politécnica de Valencia. And the speakers will be Stephanie Daimer from Fraunhofer Institute and also Christian Hübel from City of Mannheim. and they will discuss localized approaches to accelerating transformative change.
Very
So
relevant.
our approach on the place-based transformative innovation. This is getting complicated now. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Geneva. Thank you, the rest of you.
you all.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone
you.
here.
Thank
And
you
thanks for
all.
coming to Karlstad, everyone.
Thank you.